right. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Simply Cyber Firesides. I'm your host, as always, Dr. Gerald Auger. And today, I'm wicked excited to introduce all of you to Zubair Khan. We're going to call him Z for the rest of the show. He's a seasoned cybersecurity professional with over 14 years of industry experience. Z currently serves as a cybersecurity specialist at Bremer in Perth, Western Australia, so we can get him there for the Worldwide Wednesdays to represent the Down Under. At Bremer, he delivers and leads cybersecurity services for clients with expertise in implementing and maintaining critical security frameworks, including the Essential 8, SMB 1001, and CIS. And his journey in technology has been marked by a steady progression through increasingly specialized roles. Before focusing exclusively on cybersecurity, Z spent nearly 3 years as a technology consultant at Bremer, where he delivered projects related to Microsoft Azure, Microsoft 365, SharePoint, Power Platform, and enterprise mobility and security solutions, all while doing that at a desk that was so tiny he couldn't put both his phone and his mouse on it. Little pre-story in the green room. Now, prior to all of this, Z spent over a decade as a senior managed services engineer, supporting diverse infrastructure setups and driving continuous technical and procedural improvements. And this extensive background in IT infrastructure gives him a unique perspective on how security integrates with broader technology ecosystems. Z is an educated man. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Computer Systems Networking and Telecommunications from the University of Auckland, along with several professional certs like VMware Certified Pro and Microsoft Certified Solutions Associate for Office 365. And today, in this next hour interview, we're going to explore Z's insights on implementing security frameworks for organizations, the evolving cybersecurity landscape in Australia and New Zealand, and practical approaches to strengthening security postures for businesses of all sizes, and particularly interesting for the Simply Cyber community, hashtag Team SC, Z's got a perfect case study story of transitioning from IT into cyber. So if you yourself are trying to break into cybersecurity and you work in IT and you've been struggling and trying to figure your path out, Z could be that inspiration. He could give you that blueprint today for you to make that transition. It's going to be a good one. As always, this is a engaging live stream. It's all about good times. We don't get hung up on pomp and circumstance. So if you have questions, drop them in chat. I am here to serve you. I'm here to facilitate your questions and give them to Z and extract value from this dude. I met him in Florida at Zero Trust World. We high-fived, instant friends. I think I bought him a beer. We'll have to confirm that. And he wanted to come on and share his story and help people of the Simply Cyber community. So put your Oprah emotes together, if you would. Terrence Billingsley and Jason Eyestone, Steve Young, Lara Flores, Steve Young, Chris Whitlock. Drop those Oprah emotes. And let's welcome Zubair Khan to Simply Cyber Firesides. I'm super excited. Let's go. Hey, what's up, Zubair? How you doing, man?
Hey, Gerald, how's it going?
It's going great. I'm live streaming. I got pink and blue lights over here. I'm living my best life. How's it going with you?
Yeah, good. It's quite early. It was a bit of a struggle getting up, but I'm glad to be here and yeah, glad to be on the show.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Shiraz Maya says South Africa in the house. Listen, Zubair is not just from Perth, Australia. He's literally in Perth, Australia. So this man has gotten up really early to help us today. So, early thank yous, Z, for doing this for us. So I gave you the rundown on who you are. I feel like it was fairly accurate. Let's dive right in. You went from IT to cyber. Before you even tell me how you did it and unlock the mystery for everybody, why did you do it? What motivated you to want to go into cyber? IT is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I first started, I didn't actually, think I wanted to be in cybersecurity. I just started out in IT. I loved tinkering around with computers. My dad bought me a computer when I was really young and I would just play around with them. So IT was always my passion and I always enjoyed just being in IT in general. Um, I mean, over time, you guess, you start working with different things in IT. You start figuring out where your niches are and what you enjoy. And I think as I got into the the cybersecurity space and started understanding a little bit about security, I kind of enjoyed looking into that space, and yeah, just started attending different webinars, started doing some self research, and I guess at Bremer we had a lot of opportunity to play around with different technologies and tools, so that I kind of adapted there to understanding cybersecurity as a whole. But yeah, it's always been my interest for the past, I'd say, 5 years now. I spent 2 years just kind of understanding it, and then finally ended up getting myself a role at Bremer to progress into cybersecurity.
So there's a lot to unpack there. Found the passion, wanted to do it, so now we understand why. And you found a role at Bremer, so at your current employer. But what did you do? Because there's education, there's certifications, there's practical experience. Those are kind of the three legs of the stool as I see it. What did you do, or what was your path? And you said it right there. It took you 2 years just to figure it out. So I mean, it's not an easy row to hoe, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me at Bremer, it was about building opportunities at the organization, because I was basically kind of call it a veteran at Bremer. I've been there for a very long time, so I was able to bring forward change to the organization and provide what I thought would be the next step for the company. So, um, doing the research, understanding what was what was the go-to or the talk of the town for that particular time, and then progressing from there. So I guess for us in Australia, there was a lot of focus on Essential 8 at the time. So we built, I did a lot of research into that, learned it, from the ground up, understood everything about it, and then built my kind of role around the Essential 8, and just got into that area of cybersecurity. And I mean, I guess when you talk about cybersecurity, frameworks is a key part of it. So understanding that frameworks is where you go to, and that's where you kind of dive into cybersecurity. That's how I got into the role as a whole.
I love it. So we are going to talk GRC and frameworks. Z is definitely a card carrying member of the GRC mafia. So Z, just really quickly, I am trying to make GRC so socially acceptable and so mainstream that I'm just leaning into it. And we've coined this term GRC mafia, and it's like we're like a faction that you can't push around. So we will get into that in a little bit. So one thing that I always talk about is networking, right? I'm like, oh, networking is super valuable. It opens doors. It builds relationships. You find out about things. And the way that we met at Zero Trust World, if I can tell the story, is we were throwing the Simply Cyber community meetup, and correct me if I'm wrong, Z, because I do get things confused because I'm like a goldfish, but you basically walked up on the party, and I'm like, hello, like, what are you, you're part of this community. What's up, dude? And you're like, no, I have no idea who you guys are, but like, this looks like a good time. Like, let's go. And we ended up having like a 30-minute conversation. And I think we had a beer together. Maybe I had a beer at you.
Yeah, I don't. I just to clarify that I actually don't actually drink. So we did have I think it was a Coke at the time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, you guys were just downstairs, I guess, in the hotel that I was staying. So there was another guy that was there. Sorry, I completely
Yeah,
forgot
yeah,
his
no,
name.
it's good.
But we actually met up at Zero Trust World in the pre-event, and we started chatting, and he was from New York, and he was just kind of just getting himself into cybersecurity. He wasn't actually working in a cybersecurity role at this time, and we had a chat for about 45 minutes to an hour. Got his number, and he was actually the one that messaged me to say that, hey, come down here. There's a little bit of group. There's guys meeting up. So yeah, I came down and saw you guys, and yeah, he was actually the one who introduced me to you guys.
Oh,
And I do
perfect.
apologize that I have completely forgotten his name, because I met so many people at Zero Trust World. But it was yeah, that's how we got to know each other, and I guess yeah, we had a little small chat. I think it was about 15 minutes, and then you invited me on for a podcast, I guess, and here we are.
Yep, exactly. And yeah, Kimberly can fix it. Was there? She remembers it. Yeah, it's just again like I tell people all the time, and I'm going to spend a minute on this. I just tell people all the time how valuable networking is, and it's not just like walking up to a random person at a conference and being like, "Hello, hello, who are you?" I mean, sometimes it is, but sometimes it's having a chat, and then you networked with one person who then invited you to a networking event, then met me. Now you're on a podcast. You're all these people are meeting you, so it really is just kind of organic and one vine to the next, and don't really try to overthink it as far as networking goes. But just because Z said yes to the phone call, now he's getting up at 4 a.m. to spit hot fire about GRC people. So yeah, no, it's good. Did networking play any role for you in your transition to
Oh,
GRC?
definitely. I was never really confident in talking to people, and I guess as a consulting role at Bremer, we spent a lot of times in front of customers. So building that confidence, talking to people, well, clients to start with, and then you just kind of go from there and gain a little bit of confidence talking to other people. It's really hard to find similar interest in people. Like sometimes you make up somebody you're afraid that they might not understand what you're talking about, and that's definitely happened before. But I guess over time you kind of build that kind of experience and confidence to adapt your conversations, to network even better, and to just listen, I guess, as well. It's great to talk about what you know, but it's also great to just listen to what other people know, because there is a phenomenal amount of knowledge out there in the IT industry, and I guess even just that zero trust world. For instance, I met up with, I guess you remember Hector Moncia, who was there at the conference. I met him actually the morning after we went. I was getting a coffee. It was about 6 a.m. and he was just coming out of the coffee shop. So I stopped, just went up to him and go, "Hey, yeah, really, really good chat yesterday at the panel." And I just started chatting with him, and we spoke for about 45 minutes, I guess, that morning. Just standing outside in the cold, talking with the coffee in our hand. And the amount of stuff that I learned from him was just amazing. Like, and I came back from that conference, and that is the one thing I talk about at Bremer all the time, is like the knowledge that I learned from this guy. And I guess one of the main things he spoke about was misconfigurations. You
Mhm.
always talk about security as being this, you need to have all these tools, all these big things in place, but sometimes people forget that people are sometimes your issue, and
Mhm.
having people make mistakes and do misconfigurations can be a real big issue. And yeah, he mentioned to me how he's an ethical hacker, and most of the times they get into systems is from people just misconfiguring things. There's somebody who's forgot to turn on a policy, or was testing something and left the policy turned off. So and that's how they get into systems. And I thought that was a great chat, and that just came from listening. I probably didn't give him anything that I knew, because this guy's he's a veteran. He probably knows a hell of a lot more about cybersecurity than I do. But I just listening to him, it was great.
There you
So
go.
yeah.
So listening, definitely an underutilized skill. If you find yourself waiting for the other person to stop talking so you can talk, you're not actually listening. You're you're waiting. That's what that is. So definitely, it's kind of funny talking about this, Z, because speaking is something that all of us can do, right? Like I'll just assume everybody here can speak English, right? Everybody can do it, so you just take it for granted. I can hear what you're saying, and yeah, I can hear. Like you take it for granted, but like the ability to effectively communicate and the ability to effectively listen are actually really valuable skills that a lot of people don't have, and they kind of assume they do because they can speak or hear. And did you ever kind of like work on speaking or work on listening or be like mindful of it?
I still don't think I'm really that great at speaking. A lot of people in my office tell me that I do a really good job with like lunch and learns and stuff like that. But I still have that, like you call it imposter syndrome. Where you don't actually feel good enough for what you're doing, and I guess it comes with experience. When you're in the zone, you get there and you just start talking about what you like and what's really passionate to you, and it just flows naturally. When you start trying to prepare and script things, or try to have to think about the next thing you're going to say, I feel like that's where it becomes really difficult. And you don't really be yourself. And that's an important thing, is being yourself when you're in these conversations, because it's easy for people to just lose interest in what you're saying, because they can tell you're not really talking about what you really know. And I think one of the key things for me as well is also admitting that there's certain things that you don't know. And I think that was a key thing in my growth, was as much as I do, I have been in the industry for a long time. There's still things that I don't know, and I'm not afraid to admit that. I'll basically say to somebody like, I don't know about that. Can you please explain it to me and teach me? Because I'm always willing to learn. And man, there's things you learn every single day on the job, no doubt.
No, yeah, 100%. In fact, like even so, he's Z is like client facing, and I didn't give him any prep ahead of time, no email of what we're going to talk about or anything like that. And he just showed up, and I'm like, yeah, like this is what consulting is, right? You don't know what the client's problem is or what their attitude is or what how they woke up this morning, like with their attitude and stuff like that. So yeah, no, he's definitely living that. So let's take a minute and just I have one more question kind of around transition. So you
Yep.
transitioned from IT to cyber, right? How did,
Mhm.
because there's other people in chat right now who are in that position, they want to do that. How did your background in like infrastructure and managed services kind of shape your approach in the way that you look at security challenges or the way that you solve security challenges? I'm kind of curious. Did it influence? Do you find that it gave you a leg up? Do you look at problems a certain way? How did that
Yep.
experience help you go forward?
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand or have an IT background, like having just knowing the fundamentals and understanding how basic technology works or how people work. A lot of security has to do with you know design and the way systems are designed, and every system is designed differently. So having experience in the way systems are designed really helped me in transitioning to cybersecurity, because I was able to understand how businesses worked and how the different technologies worked, so that I could work on protecting them. And that was important. Like, for instance, for me, I really like PowerShell. I've been doing PowerShell scripts for as long as I can remember, and I love doing PowerShell. Now in my cybersecurity job, I used to. Well, this was like 2 years ago when I first started out in this role. We built a lot of the essential A controls just around PowerShell and deploying them through PowerShell, which was and it saved a whole lot of time, trying to do these things manually or whatever, using other tools out there that could do part of it. And it was great just having that skill in PowerShell to be able to do these things. And but one thing I do can say is that when you look at security, especially, there is so many different areas that you can go into. There is a technology side of things where you just focus on the technology, but there's also the risk management and the talking to clients and understanding what they need in terms of mitigating risk as a whole. So that CISO kind of role that people talk about. So it just depends on, like, where do you find your passion? Do you find your passion in technology? Do you want to sit and just deal with tools all day and just be the guy trying to find threats and dealing with threats and mitigating threats, or do you want to be that person that is in charge of the bigger picture and can be responsible for that bigger picture when it comes to security? That's, you got to find your strength in that thing. And one of my strengths was talking to clients, and um, I do enjoy talking to clients, and I think I can influence the decisions that they make. So I found my strength in that area. So that's what I currently do now, is I consult on frameworks and mitigating risk and in that area of cybersecurity. But I still have a strong technical background, so that I can, when I do propose something, I have that idea of, I know how your systems work. I know what you do, what you need to protect them. So I think it's important to have a little bit of both.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think for sure that I have computer science background, software engineer background, so it definitely gives me a leg up when I'm doing GRC stuff, especially if I'm talking to engineers about like how to mitigate risk, and I'm like, you could do it this way, and or they're like, oh, we could do it this way, and you're like, that's not a good idea. That's actually an awful idea. Obviously, you have to say it in a more beautiful way than your baby's ugly, but but it is what it is, dude. I'm kind of curious. This is a question you may not be prepared for or want to answer, but so like everybody that works in IT, especially now that you like PowerShelling all the things, everyone that works in IT has like in like a oopsie, like it's like a story, right? And I'll just share mine if you haven't heard it before. When I was in my first real job as a software engineer, we I we this business ran its entire business off a in-house lamp stack, Perl web app, and I didn't know any better. Okay, so like I was doing like coding in production. Like you would literally change it, save the Perl file, refresh the page, and see if you fixed it or not. And it had a Postgres backend. I was doing like SQL tuning and forgot to join two tables and saved it,
Oh,
and
no.
immediately people started banging the app, and which basically means it's reaching into the database and it's doing these really long, really just bogged down bad process, and I brought the entire network down. And because you can't just like reboot it, like there's like active transactions going through this database, you had to let it process. And it was bad. I was like sweating. I was gross. And the best part was, though, it was a small business. No one knew of what happened. And I was like, like it was that that Michael Scott meme where like you're getting an award for
Yep.
like fixing the thing you broke. Yeah, this guy.
Yep. You look like they create the problem so you can be the hero, basically.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So do you
Um,
got any of those stories in your wheelhouse?
I do. I have a lot of them, but I guess one that stands out, and this is definitely going to basically tell you how old I am in a really roundabout way. So we took on a client, and this was probably about 10 years ago, and they actually had a Server 2003 terminal server. Now, I don't know how many people in your audience actually has ever experienced a Server 2003 terminal server, but they are really old, right?
Okay.
Um, Now, on top of that, this terminal server ran on a user's desktop. So basically, there was a receptionist that had a really beefy desktop. I think it was like a gaming PC or something like that. And on that gaming PC, they had Oracle VMbox that ran a terminal server on the receptionist's PC. So the receptionist would basically sit at the desk, computer next to her. The VM would run in the background of her Windows machine. She would RDP onto that same Windows terminal server from her desktop, right? And there'll be a lot of other people RDPing onto that same terminal server. It's just basically the receptionist PC, but everyone will
Yeah.
work off the terminal server. So one day we were doing some maintenance on it or whatever, and we were in progress of transitioning them away from this because it's obviously not a great solution. But the drive ran out of space, I believe. So, and this was Oracle VMbox, and it was like back in the days, it was really finicky when you worked on it. And I remember having to do something with expanding the disk, and I completely wrecked that server. And I remember it was a very, very long night to get them back up and running. I don't even think they had good backups at the time. We like started restoring from like the file server and a few other things, and we had to basically rebuild their whole terminal server because I completely wrecked the server. And this was way back in the days. I wasn't very very experienced back then, but I do remember this, and I did spend the entire night fixing it, and I did get them up and running, I guess by something like 9, 10 o'clock the next morning. And it did feel like, I felt like I did a good job, but I was initially the cause of it. So
Yeah.
it's quite an interesting one. But that's probably the collier story I remember. There's been some other ones that we've got, basically I've come into, where we've had, external parties kind of delete a client's data or delete an exchange database. And we've had to restore basically their entire exchange from OST files on the desktop. And that
Oh
was,
my
that was
God!
an
Like
all our job.
every box, like every mailbox.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, entire Exchange database and backups were gone, and we used some software to basically upload all the emails from an OST file to their Exchange server. It was a nightmare. Oh, it was such a big job. That was a full weekend job, basically getting
Yeah,
that done.
yeah.
And that was us coming in after this happened to them from another provider. Yeah, it was interesting. And we've also had I don't know if you've come across this, but people pulling out the wrong drives in a RAID array. So you have like a RAID 10 and they're mirrored, and someone goes to change the drive, pulls out the wrong drive, breaks the entire mirror, and you completely lose the entire RAID,
I
and you have
have
to
never
restore the whole
done
thing
that, but
again.
that does sound like that, that
that was
definitely
a
sounds like a
that was a
measure
com-
twice, cut once kind of situation.
Yeah, that was a common one across junior technicians. I don't know what it was, but there, you'd have the drives and it'd be like a red light on the one that's, not supposed, like the red light on the one that's dead, right? So you're supposed to pull out that one, but I don't know what it would be. But sometimes people would pull out the one next to it, and it's just unlucky because in array 10 you have a 1 in 3 chance of breaking the entire array if you pull out the wrong disk, and if you pull out the wrong disk, the whole thing's gone. So yeah, it's not great.
There you go. So that's another pearl of wisdom from Z here today. Look twice when pulling RAID drives out,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
yeah, you can't unscrew it. Basically, you can't. It's like yeah. Ugh. Yeah, that's rough. And if you guys got any experiences in chat, you feel comfortable and confident sharing with us, do share them. I don't know if you do this, Z, but like when we interview people, like that's a question. Like what's your kind of like horror story? Because you can't work in IT for more than 6 months and not have had the story, right? It's like everybody lives that once or twice at least before you learn, and then you kind of point, yeah, or like you push patches on a Friday, and then you're like,
Ah.
oh crap.
Yeah. Back then, I mean, now it's not so bad. Like Windows updates have gotten a lot better. But I remember back in the days when .NET Framework used to break literally every single thing that you have on a server.
Yeah.
And like we basically had a SDM a while ago that we would just not do .NET updates. It was just like, no, we're not doing that unless we really have to do it. We will do .NET updates. It was just the scariest thing to do back then. At least it's come a long way. Yeah.
It is, yeah, it has come a bit. It has come a bit. So we've been talking about Z's transition from IT to cyber and all the success he's had and the skills. If you're just joining us, this is Zubair Khan. He's a cybersecurity professional, long time professional, and sharing his thoughts, technical background, but GRC. So let's talk about GRC. Now, I am a NIST cybersecurity framework fanboy, okay? Like I love myself some NIST. But in Australia, you guys got your own things cooking, and I'm not going to throw shade at them. You yourself personally have worked with frameworks like Essential Aid and SMB 1001. What kind of, in your experience, what kind of security controls do you find that organizations are struggling with to implement effectively? Like it's just implement it, but you're consistently seeing it across your, obviously you don't name any clients, but just
Yeah.
challenges that you see. What kind of things are you seeing in your space?
Yeah, I mean, in Essential 8, application control is probably the big one, which I think has, for me, looking at what application control does, I think it has the biggest effect on cybersecurity as a whole. Because if malware can't run, you can't do anything. Basically,
Mhm.
that's the bottom line there. So I think application control is definitely a huge one. And well, everyone knows MFA. There's always
Oh my
this
God. Yeah.
this there's always a CEO, CFO somewhere that's like, oh, MFA is too hard basket for me, basically. And that's that's the biggest one out there is yeah, MFA and application control. Those are the two things that I think have the biggest impact. But also the ones that we see there's always gaps in. There's always somebody that doesn't have it or doesn't want it. And
Hmm.
it's probably the biggest concern when it comes to cybersecurity is that it just takes one person or one misconfiguration for attackers to get in, and that's it.
Do you like, do you have like any like go-to approaches that you've used or that you do use for trying to address those type of challenges?
Yeah, I think it's just about educating and identifying and explaining what the risks are. Because you talk about cybersecurity and cybersecurity is all about risk. So we can never mitigate 100% of a cybersecurity incident. The fact is that there's always going to be one. But we look at what are you really doing to mitigate that risk? Now, explaining the risk to the CEO, CFO, you talk to them in the dollar values. You explain to them, okay, this is what it's financially going to cost you if you don't do this. And that seems to resonate really well. And I think it's understanding the audience that you're talking to. So for me personally, like, if you're talking to a C-level person, they think about dollars, and you have to resonate how cybersecurity will affect them in terms of dollars. But if you're talking to, your IT manager, your technical person, you talk to them or if you say your operations manager, if you're talking to your operations manager, you talk to them in terms of how it's going to affect their staff. what kind of impact it's going to have on their staff, how much productivity loss they're going to have, how much productivity loss they're going to gain if certain things happen. So it's definitely in terms of the audience that you're talking to, and the decision makers. You need to, kind of find what really drives them to help the decision be made. So I hope that makes sense. I'm
Yeah,
not sure if I explained
100%.
that very well.
No, 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 it was perfect. I mean,
Yeah.
you're echoing a lot of the same things I believe. At the end of the day, you've gotta talk money. Like, cyber's a cost center. Like, if they can make $200,000 more in profit, or they can give you $200,000 to secure the business, you know what? Securing the business doesn't look like a new boat floating in the harbor. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that 200 grand could buy you a boat. So this is the argument. This is like the uphill battle that you have to fight in order to get this budget. I guess you
Yeah.
like, in my opinion, it's like you almost have to show them like, yeah, you could not get the boat, but if you get the boat, there's a high potential that we're gonna get ransomware and you're gonna lose $3 million. So I don't know how many boats that is, but
Yeah,
you can.
another good conversation to have, which I find really helps as well, is people are aware of availability. Like you talk about having, making sure these systems are available all the time. So, for instance, you would pay for redundancies, or you would pay for high availability, have your data replicated, or pay for that data center to make sure your services are always up and running. Like you think about your banking, you're like, I always want to be able to log into my bank and access my money. But when you talk about cybersecurity, you can also talk about the angle about downtime. When an incident happens, systems are down. So effectively, a cybersecurity incident is downtime. And what does downtime really cost you? How long is your workers not working? How much is that costing you
Mhm.
when those attackers get in? So do you want to prevent that from happening? Here's what you should do. This is how you mitigate that risk from it happening. And if it does happen, make sure you have the right plans in place to make sure you get back up and running quickly, so that you can, they call it stay in the green, because you look at I don't know if you've ever seen the cybersecurity defense matrix. There's always like the red bits when the incident happens and the green bits when you're protecting. So you want to stay in the green as much as possible. Once the incident happens, make sure you have all the processes in place to get back in the green as quick as possible.
Oh, for sure. Like, I 100% agree with you about, the money and kind of talking their language. I'd also say, like, kind of give them questions, right? So they think instead of like just listening. Like, one I
Yeah.
like to say is like, if I took every computer away from your employees for 5 days, how much work would get done? Like just an
Yeah.
honest question, because a threat actor will essentially take all your computers away for 5 to 10 days. Like, you tell me, like, or even better, Z, you mentioned earlier having the conversation with that guy at Zero Trust World about misconfigurations. It's not uncommon, at least in my experience, to find technologies that the business has already bought, like Microsoft 365 is a perfect example, and they haven't even configured the security controls that they're already paying for. So, like, you're not even asking for more budget. You're like literally asking to configure it, the thing they've already
Yeah.
paid for.
Yeah.
That's
Here's
usually
a
a quick
here's a
win.
funny one for you.
Mhm.
Yeah, here's a funny one for you though. Like, so Microsoft 365 have a thing called security defaults. And one of the recommendations from CIS or Microsoft CIS controls is to disable security defaults, which I think is quite funny, because
Interesting.
security defaults, they have configurations that, um, you really shouldn't really be there. You basically should create conditional access policies and do these all yourself, rather than having the very basic level of security that Microsoft have put in, that's a really long time ago. So when we do like Essential 8 kind of controls and mapping from Essential 8 to what Microsoft 365 should really have, one of the recommendations in the reports that we do is like, make sure security defaults are disabled, because if you do, you can't really configure a lot of the other things that you need to do for the Essential 8.
That is interesting. That's like a hot take that, I mean, CIS is saying it too, but like, that's crazy. Like, that flies directly, like, what the hell, Microsoft? Like, what are we doing here? Like, has anybody like mentioned that to them? They must have, right? Like, I don't know.
It's I think it was done a long time ago, like before cybersecurity was like the hot take in Microsoft 365. They had this like, it's like, what do you call it? It's for the non-educated professional to be able to have basic security in the tenancy, and I think it's just horrible. Like,
Ugh.
and I don't even
Well,
think I don't think they turn it. I don't think they turn it on by default anymore. Anyways, it used to be a thing for all tenants that created it before a specific time, but I think they just have it off by default by now. Yeah, it says
yeah.
if your tenant was created on or after October 22nd, 2019, security defaults might be enabled in your tenants. So yeah, I think sorry,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
I
enabled
just
after
could
2019.
see, somebody going in there, like, a one-man shop or whatever, and being like, "Oh, like, this is, quick win. I could just do this." But so, you mentioned Essential 8. Okay, so I actually have a little history with Essential 8. I'm gonna bring them up on stage here. So this is the Essential 8. If you haven't seen them before, essentially, they are, 8 controls, for lack of a better word, that the Australian government, the Australian Cybersecurity Center, provides as, I guess you'd say, if you implement just these 8 controls, you get the biggest risk reduction for your business. A couple things. One, you just mentioned you help organizations with these. What are your thoughts about using this as kind of a framework for someone who's just like looking to get a quick win or secure their assets? And also, Z, please answer that, and then I'll give my experience and my speculativeness of something I encountered with this that frustrated me.
um, so like essentially it's been around for a long time. So I mean, my history behind it is like it first started off as being, like the essentials. Everybody wants to know what you really have to do with the security, and um, I think they're great. They do a really good job in giving you basic coverage, but there is definitely gaps, and we identify that. But here's the thing about security, and sorry, I'm just diversing here a little bit, but
No.
when it comes to security, there's always this thing where people say you should have that, or you should do this, you should do security awareness training, you should make sure that you have a password or something like that. But what's that's really based on? Is it just based on opinion, or is it based on a framework? So that's where I always talk about security. Is when I propose something, I always link it back to a framework, because frameworks are industry standards by professionals that mean something. It's not just my opinion on what you should have. I could say like 30 character passwords are great. No one's going to break into that. But is it really part of a framework? What's your evidence behind it? And that's where I believe frameworks are important in that sense. But at the same time, which is something that we've been thinking about recently, is that one framework may not always be enough, or some frameworks on its own may not be enough. So in Essential 8, there's some great stuff, and I think I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but there's different maturity levels. There's like level 1, 2, and 3 for this, similar to CIS or IG1, IG2, IG3.
Hmm.
In that sense, with level 1, application control is it's part of it, and everything's sorry, in level 1 you still have to cover everything in each control, but as you go up to different levels, they tighten in terms of sometimes it's how quickly you should update your machines, or how much more restrictive application control should be. For instance, like in level 1, application control is for workstations only. In level 2, you should have application control on servers and workstations, and then level 3 should be non-internet facing servers. So it kind of mitigates more risk as you go up in different levels. For me, I think there's some of it is missing. Like there's nothing to do with security awareness training in the Essential 8, and I think that's a big cause for concern. There's nothing about insurance fraud policies or cyber incident response processes. There is something that says you should enact it, but there's nothing that says you should have one. So there's a little bit of a gray area there.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. It's great. It gives you good protection, but there's definitely is gaps, which I think why we look at other frameworks as well, like the SMB 1001.
Yeah. So when I implemented it, just as a quick aside, like I used to play this video game on stream that allowed you to be like a CISO, and it was pretty dynamic. You had a whole environment, and there was like active threat actors. There were active Tyler Ramsbys coming at you, and you had to do all these things. And I actually did like a series of shows where like I would like um like vehemently comply with a framework. I wouldn't implement anything outside the framework, and I would do the framework against the maturity levels, right? And I did CIS, NIST CSF, and Essential 8 and a couple others. And with Essential 8, it seems that this is good for endpoints, right? And including like it could be a server, but this doesn't really get into like the network layer is completely absent. Um, Incident response, like you mentioned, SecOps is absent. Some of the more administrative stuff is absent. So as far as like, because I did think this was great. Like if you are a smaller business or a one person shop and you're trying to implement cybersecurity in at least a structured way, this felt like a good one to roll out to your kind of endpoints, right? Is that how you see this delivering the most value, or how would we use this essentially to like get value while not having our hospital gown untied in the back? You know what I mean?
So I guess there's a little bit of clarification there with regards to, the network layer and stuff like that. So for instance, in operating system, the text behind it does go into, for instance, operating systems on network switches, routers, and all that. So as you go up to different levels, there's a whole bunch of text behind what you should patch, and one of it is network devices. So there is stuff that covers those areas, but not as robust as something like CIS as well. So it does have its use cases in all size businesses. I do believe that there's a lot of enterprise organizations in Australia, especially not-for-profit organizations with or government level organizations that focus on level 2 maturity, and it's obviously something the government kind of pushes as well. So it does have its place,
Mm,
but you have to you have to really read into the text behind each one. That is just the overall categories that they put it in, but inside those categories, like for instance with multi-factor, in maturity level 1 it doesn't talk about phishing resistant MFA, but in level 2 it talks about phishing resistant MFA. So there is a lot of text behind each area, and you basically can implement this across any size organization. But like you said, there is definitely clear gaps in certain areas
yeah.
that I think some other frameworks do address.
Well, there you go. And I would say it is 8, controls, and they are reasonably easy to comprehend and communicate to your IT counterparts and to the business. These different ones, they're not simple to implement though. Like admin priv restrictions. Like yes,
It's
don't
hard.
give everybody domain admin credentials, but if everybody's an admin on their own box, like that's a problem. If you only have like one level of account for certain systems, like that's a problem. So it is not, it's not easy. It's not just because they're essential doesn't make them the easy 8, right?
Yeah.
As it were. Oh my God. So one question coming in. It's not really a question. Well, actually, hold on. We did have a question earlier that I missed. I'm sorry. Let me ask you a question, and then I want to talk about something Cloud said here about security awareness training. Jeff said he finished a 10-month cyber boot camp on Blue Team. He's working on Sec Plus, A Plus, seeking part-time IT help desk on nights and weekends because he wants to get into a soccer JRC. What roles help most? If stuck, how do I keep moving up in IT? I know we were talking earlier about your transition, which is where this question came up. But Zubair, can you just kind of share your thoughts, if you will, for Jeff? Give him a little hand.
Yep. It took a long time for me to get into cybersecurity. So I guess don't get discouraged if you're not getting something in, the first years or first couple of years of being in IT. Um, Anything you do in the IT industry in terms of, understanding Microsoft 365 or understanding just risk management, even if you want to, look at what different MDR SOC tools do, or anything that can offer you the ability to basically triage SOC MDR items or SOC items, that could be useful. But my recommendation here is stick with gaining that foundation, experience, especially in the Microsoft 365 suite, because that seems to be the most common thing these days. But if you want to transition into a SOC role, I would say personally, try to understand which vendor, which like what's what I'm looking for. Not really a vendor, but which kind of tool makes sense to you, and what area you really enjoy doing? Like, do you like looking through 100 logs daily to identify incidents? Like, is that the kind of thing you really want to do, or do you just want to be a person that is reviewing those incidents after they've been analyzed by those people that have already gone through those logs? Do you want to be the second level responder that implements a change or implements a remediations? Like, what is your passion? Because looking through logs, man, not it's not for everybody. 100%, I tell you that. Like, I've got a guy that I work with that is, he's really good, like at being peculiar about certain logs and going through those things, and that's great. But for me, I can't sit daily, 24 hours a day looking through SIEM logs for security events. That's just it's a very niche thing for people. So do think about what really excites you first before you just go to the default security SOC world.
Yeah, 100%. And thank you for that thorough answer. And Jeff, I hope that
Yeah.
helped. Just a quick hit. Daniel asked what video game I was talking about. I actually had a pretty gnarly falling out with that company. So it's like that bad guy in the Harry Potter series. Um, so Cloud asked a question, or it wasn't really a question, but I think it's a really interesting concept and topic to talk to for a few minutes. Security awareness, right? Have you ever, I know you're Australian, have you ever seen the US Department of Defense security
Mhm.
awareness training?
I have not.
Oh my God, dude, it is so bad. It is so bad. They tried to make it so cool by having it be like animated and like video and stuff, but it's like, like this guy like creeps over your cubicle wall and he's like, "Hey, I'm Jeff, the new guy. Can I borrow your swipe badge?" And it's like, dude, what are you talking about? It's
Yeah.
awful. But so security awareness sucks. How do you do it for your clients?
Look, we've had experience with. I don't know if I should be able to derail Microsoft here, but we've had experience with Microsoft security awareness training, and we didn't like it, so we did go elsewhere. Not gonna market or anything like that here, but yeah. Look, the main thing for security is security awareness training is getting the timing right and getting the frequency right. If you do too much of it, it just becomes fatigue for people. So it's definitely getting that schedule right, and that could be different for every organization. I mean, we've had large organizations that want it done weekly, and some organizations is like, now we would like it only done once a month. And the insurance requirements usually are once a year, and some do, like some of the controls like in SMB 1001 do require you to do it regularly. So they say
Mhm.
have a regular training schedule, but it doesn't define that frequency. It just means you need to do it regularly. So there's a bit of a gray area there. Um, yeah, it's getting the frequency right. I think that's probably important. Content. I think there's two parts of security awareness that I look at it. I look at the phishing simulations where you send an email off and people are like, tricked into clicking a link. There's that side of the training. And then there's the actual, here's a video, watch this video, answer a bunch of questions kind of training. Uh, the first part, which is the phishing simulation, I think that should be tailored around your industry and the country specifically. I think that's kind of important.
Yeah.
But also it should be sent regularly. Just leave it on schedule. We just do it on an automatic schedule. Just one goes out for Bremer especially, one goes off every week, and we just kind of forget about it. Sometimes it catches people because they're expecting a DHL package or something like that, and it comes through in the middle of the night, and they don't think and they click it on their phone. So it's definitely something that can get people based on timing. So in terms of this phishing awareness, just set and forget, but tailor it to what is relevant to the industry or country specifically. With the learning modules, I think a gap analysis really helps. So there are tools out there that do gap analysis where they have an initial conversation or initial kind of module with the user, and it's just a broad training area. So it's a few short questions, and it kind of gives you an idea of where the weak areas are, and tailoring the training to the weak areas would really be useful. So what we do is we do a gap analysis for the entire users, and then say, for instance, the users weak in Wi-Fi security or users weak in phishing training, then we'll send them phishing training modules, because it kind of relates to what they're weak at, and then you kind of build on that overall. I think that's a really good way to do it. Also, it's not everyone's not getting the same training all the time, so it doesn't seem like people are talking about it all at the same time. And yeah, it's just I think it works really well.
I love security awareness. I love doing it in fun, interesting ways. I love, like you said, people, will fall for it because they are waiting for a DHL package. So using that as an opportunity not to embarrass them, but to share with the greater group that somebody fell for it. You know what I mean? And even the quishing stuff, right? Which, by the way, I loathe that term. I loathe that term. See, I wish there was a better term for it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty particular when it comes to like vulnerability logos and terms like quishing. It just, I don't know if you're particular about any of that stuff, but it just pisses me off. So, but like people want to know how the magic trick's done, right? Or like they
Yeah.
want to know about the that's why hackers and hacker movies and hoodies on like Tyler Ramsby's, that's why people find them interesting because it's mysterious and mystique. So when you kind of wrap that in to like an email comm or a quick little 5 minutes at the start of a meeting, it gets a lot more traction and engagement, in my opinion, with the ultimate goal, right, of changing people's behavior, right? That's the ultimate goal of it. So you mentioned a minute ago about not finding Microsoft's phishing solution, the best, right? It works. It's better than nothing, but you've worked with like a lot of Microsoft security technologies throughout your career. Are there any like Microsoft security capabilities that you think, organizations might be not utilizing to their full potential?
Um, I definitely think like there's a lot you can do with conditional access, and I think it's a very underutilized for most organizations that I look at. And Microsoft are always improving on it. But there's a lot of talk about zero trust, and I still go back to it. Like we went through zero trust world, and I've always been thinking about zero trust when even before we went to that, and having like trying to adopt zero trust as much as you can within conditional access, I think it really mitigates a lot of risk. Like one of the key things that I think people don't do these days is even just MFA registrations. Like restricting MFA registrations only to your office IP or to organizational devices can have a huge impact on cybersecurity, because the first thing attackers do is when they get in, even if they were to potentially, phish your MFA or even do a man-in-the-middle attack off, getting a cookie session from an MFA, steal a cookie from a Microsoft login account. The first thing they try to do is kind of, maintain persistence. So they'll go and register an MFA, and they'll be immediately blocked from doing that because they don't have an organizational device or an IP that they're using. And that is, I think that's really important. And that stopped a lot of attacks that we've come across, because you basically, once that session cookie is gone, they have no way of getting back in, that
Mm-hmm.
they need to maintain persistence. So yeah, I think that's definitely one of the things is definitely underutilized. Um, there's a lot of good things in Purview at the moment that are coming up, especially with frameworks as well. Your GRC again.
Woo!
So Purview's got a lot of things. They've got a few things with Essential 8 now as well. And if I'm not mistaken, hopefully there should be a few things coming with SMB 1001 soon. So yeah, Purview is definitely underutilized as well.
I love it. Yeah. And that MFA, like, IP, basically listing IPs that are approved. That technique, you kind of like set it and forget it unless you're changing your IP schema. But typically, um,
Mm.
you won't unless you're adding, right? So, Hygen had a question for you as a beginner, right? We have a lot of beginners in here looking to break in.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts? Like someone comes up to you, Z, who's like, "Hey, like I'm looking to break into cyber. What do you think where should I start learning or what should I start learning? What's your typical go-to response for this question?"
Yeah, I mean, I think IC2 certified in cybersecurity, which is a free course, and I believe a free exam still, is a great overall course about understanding cybersecurity. So with with the IC2 exam, they go into different domains. So they talk about the different areas of, risk management, and different areas in terms of cybersecurity. And I think just doing that course really opens your eyes to what cybersecurity is. Like, for me, cybersecurity is all about risk, and understanding that is really important. And knowing how it all fits together, I think that course is great to start with. In terms of like where do you go from there? Like I wouldn't say you'd be able to get a job immediately in cybersecurity with just that certificate. A lot of people are looking for experience or having certain types of background in IT. So I definitely try to start off with something in the IT industry, whether it be a level one help desk or just a service engineer. Try to get that foundations of understanding how to administer environments, understanding how environments work, but always thinking about cybersecurity and making sure that you bring cybersecurity into your day. So even when you're doing a level one help desk work or you're doing service engineer work, thinking about the security of the work that you're doing and just making it part of your daily routine. Always considering security. Like don't go typing a password and leaving it on a client server. Think about security. And just make it a part of you, about a part of who you are, because then it will naturally come to you, and then you'll be able to move into the field, and start really talking about security and presenting your worth to where you want to go from there.
Was that the ISC2CC that you were referring to?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so it's the IS2CC. We could put a link to it. Just because I love saying this one, because I have 1,700 videos on my channel. I actually have an entire video going through um, this entire thing, and I'll drop a link to it in chat. There you go. And you can go to it and check it out and enjoy my hot take on it. Like literally, this guy. This is one of the fancy ones I did. So check that out. It's coming from Z. But yeah, I love, dude. I make so much content. I love saying, "Oh, I got a video for that." It's like it gives me like, like that's why I do the videos. Is because I want to be able to,
Yeah.
give a video to someone and have them check it out. Oh, here's another popular one. Hygen's getting all his questions answered. What are your thoughts? We talked about programming earlier. I think in the green
Yep.
room. Like, what are your thoughts on you got to be able to program?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. It depends on what you want to do. Yeah, like Cloud said, 100%. It depends on what you want to do. And I always talked about, what are your passions and what really excites you about cybersecurity? Do you want to be that SOC person? Do you want to be looking at logs, or do you want to be coding for protection? So it just depends on where you want to go. Ethical hacking, yeah, I would say having an understanding of coding would be very beneficial to you. But if you're in a CISO role, I would say you don't really need to use coding at all in a CISO role. So it totally depends what area you're looking at and what are your strengths. If your strengths are talking to people and getting them to make decisions, then CISO is the perfect role for you. You don't need to do coding for that. You just need to understand risk management. So yeah, definitely not a requirement in cybersecurity. 100%.
Cloud puts Vibe Security for the win. So Z, I'm not gonna guess your age, okay? I'll just tell everybody. Like I'm 45. Oh well, I'm 45. He did mention Terminal Server 2K3 earlier, so like we've been around a minute. Have you seen this vibe coding? Like, are you aware of this this trend?
No, not really. I'm trying to Google it right now as we speak.
Dude, vibe coding, it's like the first of the vibes, but vibe coding is where you're like vibing with Gen AI to write
Oh
a
wow.
program.
Yeah.
So you're like, yo, I wanna write a web browser, and it's like blah, and then you're like, yeah, let's go, and you're vibing. Like basically, you're when you're vibe coding, essentially you are a business owner or a business unit, and you're giving requirements to a software developer that happens to be Gen AI. That's what vibe coding is. You're not really coding. You're giving requirements to a developer that isn't real. So now, but vibe is getting pushed onto everything. So like, I guess vibe security. Cloud, are you joking or is this a thing? Like, are we? I don't know if this is a thing. I told you earlier. I got things with words, dude. Quishing, vibe things. There's another one. I can't like I'm like blacking out right now. I can't even remember. There's another one that's like, oh, sci high, dude. Do they say this in Australia? So cyber hygiene, okay? Like I'm totally for it.
I know.
People are starting to throw around the term sci-hi, CYHI, and it's like fetch in the movie Mean Girls. Like it's not happening. Don't push it.
Oh,
Like
dude, like I don't know what's gonna happen with the next generation after we kind of retire, but dude, I'm not really looking forward to it. Like these terminologies that are coming out, really, yeah. I'd like to be long retired before this is the talk of the town. People are saying, "Let me get my sci-hi up to date." I'd like to be, fully
yeah,
retired before everyone's talking like that. So I'm
exactly.
not sure
Dude,
I
I'm
go with
in
it.
group chats with some Gen Z kids that I just like ask them to translate for me. And then I try to use those words in front of my own kids and they are just mortified. They're like, don't say Riz dad. Like don't do that. You're not allowed to do that. So anyways, yeah, I'm 100% with you. I've gotten off the train of like developing new lingo. So okay, we've been talking with Zubair Khan, who's been crushing it. We're just almost at time, but before we go, Zubair, um,
Yeah.
if people want to follow you or they want to check out the work you're doing, I mean, are you going to be going to conferences? Are you active on socials? Like, how can people get more Z in their life?
Yeah, look, I'm not really that active on socials, but I do kind of post things on LinkedIn from time to time. Look, LinkedIn is probably the best way to reach out to me. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them on LinkedIn. You can send me a DM, that's fine. Look, I do a lot of conferences, but oh, sorry, I do a lot of webinars and conferences, but they are kind of tailored around the work that I do, so they might not be that interesting for a lot of people. And but yeah, I'm happy to share my knowledge with anyone if you guys want to reach out for sure.
All right, and I just sent you a connection request myself. I just realized we weren't connected. And Truth from Troy with a super chat. Thanks, Truth from Troy.
Did we just become best friends? Yep.
Nice. Dude, this is Zubair Khan's LinkedIn profile. I'll drop a link in chat on how you can connect with him so you can go connect with him and see what he's talking about. He is from Australia. Okay, so like not to say that that's a problem. Like we're friends with the Australians, but like he said, essential aid is more of an Australian thing. You won't see it really in the United States. Like you won't go into a job interview in Omaha, Nebraska, and they're like, "Tell us about essential aid," right? So that's unlikely to happen. But it is all about good times, dude. I hope to run into you again at another conference. Do you ever try to attend like Black Hat or DEF CON or even like Black Hat Europe, Black Hat Asia?
Not at the stage, but who knows? Maybe in the future I'll consider it. I can't say my wife enjoys me going out of the country for too long, so
Yeah.
we try to stay in the country as much as we can. But yeah, look, there's always opportunity for me to travel and go to these really good conferences. So yeah, we definitely might catch up in the future. Or if you're down in Australia, coming down to one of our conference, definitely hit us up. Like probably good for you to get down here and see what's happening in Australia.
There you go. Do you go over to the eastern side for the
I do.
conferences and stuff?
I will be in Sydney at the end of the month. So I did. I've traveled there a few times in this past year. But yeah, if you are in the East Coast, definitely let me know. So yeah.
There you go. All right, guys. Hey, we're going to call it. I want to say shout out and thank you to Zubair Khan for spending an hour with us, giving us all sorts of nuggets and laughs and really great insights on career and even, just like some quick wins that you can implement at your business if you are in a Microsoft 365 shop. On behalf of myself, the entire chat, you guys were popping off. I loved it. Straight crushing it like a bunch of homies. Zubair, thanks so much, dude, for your time today. I genuinely appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
Heck yeah, man. All right, everybody. Until next time, stay secure.